Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AI Radio Room. I'm joined with Brendan from Masa. How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's been a really great day. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How are you finding Austin so far?
Austin is great. Like, there's a lot of people that come in for consensus, and it's good to do the side events. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you for coming along to Open House.
Thanks for having me.
Austin as well. Yeah. So maybe we could start with just like a brief introduction. So who are you and who do you represent?
Yeah, so Brendan from Masa. Masa is a decentralized AI network where people can earn by contributing data. And what that really means is we have an accessible network where people can come and build any application, any product in AI on the world's data. And I can break down sort of how that works. I'm co-founder of Masa. I've been in the space in crypto since 2013. Was an early Dogecoin miner back in the day.
Lucky.
In Norfolk. And yeah, I've sort of built my career through the years in Web3 to sort of really see what this vision for fair AI is, and we're kind of building that through Masa. So can dive in more, but a bit of my background and sort of how I've got here.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear more about Masa as we go along with the interview anyway. So maybe why Web3? So why did you initially get into the space?
Yeah, so rewind back to 2013. I got intrigued by Bitcoin. Come from a place in Norfolk which is really disadvantaged, economically underserved, and I've always been interested in computing, hacking. In the late 90s, I would hack for like Napster.
Really?
Yeah. They two-sided marketplace of songs and then consumers. They needed bandwidth to sort of host the songs, so they would have people come in and provide supply-side bandwidth on the network, and that was how I got into computing on a very an old early DSL line. And from there, I would be in white hat hacking communities in IRC, which is kind of like an old Slack equivalent.
Okay.
That was open source. And in 2013, I was kind of in those groups, and there was a lot of buzz and excitement around Bitcoin, which was this borderless, easy transact. Anyone could access it kind of way of transacting money. And from where I was from, stocks were always out of reach, even housing in many cases. And I saw it as an opportunity of using unused hardware that I had, GPUs at the time, to start mining. At the time, Bitcoin had already moved on to ASICs, so I went for Litecoin. There was already a bunch of people mining Litecoin, and there was this entire universe of shitcoins.
Yeah.
And you'd go into an IRC chat group, and there was one particular miner called Angelo BTC. He's got a pretty big Twitter following. And you would always find the pool that Angelo was mining on because he'd typically kind of have alpha there. And you go and mine that pool, and then when it listed, you'd either kind of sell on the pump or whatever.
Sure.
But that was my entry into crypto, was this way for someone like me with my background to get access to wealth that was far in excess of any economic mechanism. Working in hospitality where I grew up, as a chef, just didn't pay the same.
Exactly.
And basically I lucked out mining Dogecoin with 4 GPUs, some of the first blocks, and made more money than I'd probably earned in like 10 years in Norfolk. And from there, I just got hooked. I saw it as a way of leveling the playing field for anyone to access wealth and financial access. And over the last 10 or 11 years, Ethereum's built on that with try to level the playing field with programmable money. And now we're into this world of AI where I would say this is the most exciting opportunity of all of those two transitions. Bitcoin had to disrupt money. I said this in the talk earlier. Ethereum has had to disrupt centralized computing and centralized economic systems. But with AI, AI is already kind of disrupting the world right now with the way it's coming out of Web 2. So you have this much more advanced decentralized infrastructure with an emerging technology, AI, both growing together. And I think the value unlock here today is bigger than anything we've seen in any crypto cycle. So that's my background here. I'm on the technical side, studied maths and physics at university, very unconventionally, went as a mature student because chefs don't go and do physics. That's what I was when I was younger. And dropped out of university and been focused on building in Web3 since probably 2016. Finally here with Masa today.
Good stuff. So it's a good journey. Thank you.
Yeah, a journey.
A journey.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, you've been discussing obviously the potential synergies that we can get kind of like when we merge Web3 and AI,
Yeah.
right? The benefits that can come from that. So maybe can we discuss like what drew you to work in that specific intersection? Why?
Yeah.
What sort of value do you see in like working with AI and Web3?
Yeah. It's interesting. Where we started off with Masa, if you look at our history over the last 2.5 years of building the protocol, we started off wanting to unlock data for credit.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of credit models today do rely on machine learning. You know, machine learning precedes AI in the way that we're now using transformer models to drive AI.
Yeah.
But it was all predicated on data. For the last, I would say, 6 years, 7 years of my career, it's always been focusing on how do you take unused data, unpackage that from where it's currently located, and then get value out of it. Because it's like there's a lot of hidden value in data. Everyone says data is the new oil. It's actually not the new oil. It's like the new currency, is what I would say it is, as opposed to the new oil. So data is the new currency, is what we say.
Yeah.
And you go from this position of believing data has a lot of value, but it's not yet refined. It's not yet put into a packaging where it can be easily consumed, to then finding product market fit with a data type. And that's what we've really focused on for the last like 2 or 3 years at Masa. And when you think about AI is not AI without data. Decentralized, like distributed ledger, decentralized technology can really serve to unlock an economic model and an incentive mechanism that mechanism is programmed in the protocol. That is what the protocol is. Like for Bitcoin, every X number of blocks, you get Bitcoin to reward miners. When you kind of put that kind of economic model, you can actually mathematically represent all actors in the network.
Yes.
So people that are consuming data or consuming AI, people that are providing infrastructure, maybe that's compute, maybe it's data, maybe it's models. And then you actually put like a governance mechanism, like a validation mechanism to make sure the network is honest. That is really only possible with decentralized protocols. So you end up forming this like very natural marriage between a lot of complementary factors that ultimately converge on AI with decentralized technology to unlock a fairer system that allows for each actor in the network, whether it's a consumer, provider, or someone that's governing it, which is typically like OpenAI or Anthropic or Meta, but Meta's taking a different approach by doing open source Llama 3, wherein every stakeholder can be represented fairly in that system with this underlying mathematically robust economic protocol.
We've had a lot today about all these big players having a lot of power, and obviously historically it's been the case that a lot of this power is taken away from the user, right? And it disadvantages the user massively. You know, they can take their data, even with like training these models. They can take the data, sell it, use it,
even interacting with the model. Like all of your prompts are now trained the most recent version of GPT-4.
Precisely, and then obviously the user might not agree to that sort of thing happening, and obviously
or be aware.
Yes, exactly. And I think Web3 is very essential in bringing the control back to the user. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Control in a way that I keep going back to this is equitable in the entire system. So what's very interesting, like something we are doing with our protocol, we've made a mathematical model that models all of the actors in the system. It's essentially a thing called a stochastic model. It has a range of players in the system that all have different objectives. The players in the system are constantly optimizing their own gain to get the best value from the system. Like a user may want to get the best response from an AI model. A compute provider may want to get the best like dollar per token rate of like compute, whatever that is going through an LLM. So you end up having this like very distributed, chaotic system of players that are all working to optimize their value in the network, plus with some bad actors. So you want to reduce the impact of those bad actors. And out of this stochastic system, you can really underwrite and underpin like a game theoretical basis for each person to optimize what they're doing. And that creates a fairer ecosystem, I think. And we're going to start to see the emergence of more protocols that are taking that view. Like BitTensor is one that I really like. We're doing quite a lot of work in the BitTensor ecosystem. We're doing more there with our protocol and like bringing those two worlds together, because there are ways in which you can create self-optimizing, self-organizing games that create fairer outcomes, but still the structure that a centralized organization may give.
Yeah.
I remember like in 2018, there was a lot of people doing decentralized Uber in the 2018 cycle. And you talk to someone like driving a Lyft car or an Uber car and you say, do you care if it's decentralized? And they don't give a shit. They really don't give a fuck. And like what they care about is they get paid.
Exactly.
So it's more in this paradigm that if we can abstract away the infrastructure itself and create a better ecosystem, people will transition into that.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be convenient as well. You mentioned the Uber situation a couple of years ago with the IoT crazes.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as convenient for the user, the end user.
No, and like conversational AI is so powerful that it has the power to unlock every human being in a fundamental way. Like people that couldn't do certain things or were constrained can now have a conversation with a conversational AI and have themselves augmented by that in a very powerful way. And like, how do we get that into the hands of more people? Like, if we don't get that into the hands of more people, we're going to end up having, $20 for us paying for a Claude Opus model or a GPT-4 subscription every month may not seem like a lot of money, but for a lot of people, that's a lot of money. So how can we bring like Llama 3 that's open source, run on decentralized infrastructure that allows anyone to interact with a sophisticated high IQ LLM in a way that's more open, lower cost, and maybe for a contribution to the network. Like I download the Masa app on my phone.
Sure.
Through the Masa app, I can use that to scrape data that's training an AI model. I receive some benefit for providing that utility to the network, and then I can use that in exchange for actually utilizing and leveraging the network. So like these are things that can come out of networks like this, which are really, really exciting.
Yeah. Important work. So
yeah.
Okay, maybe the next question can be, in your opinion, is the current buzz around on-chain AI kind of overhyped, or maybe is it maybe underhyped?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're at the beginning of, so the first innings of this 10-year cycle started a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Like BitTensor is now 3 years old. Fetch AI, a couple of years old. Like SingularityNet is now from the 2018 vintage. Ocean Protocol, the same. We're kind of seeing that consolidation around some of the Gen 1, BitTensor is not Gen 1, kind of AI projects.
Sure.
And we've gone through that first cycle, even in Web2, where venture has plowed a ton of money in over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
That slowed down and the hype is now catching up as everyone kind of sees those signals.
Yeah.
We're now going through this kind of hype consolidation where we're about to kick off the next round of like fun. I think last week, 2 billion of venture went into not just Web3, but generally AI companies. So we're about to start the second wave of funding. The early stage companies that got funded last year are going to start doing their Series A, Series Bs. Like we're going to start seeing $40-50 million warrant rounds for tokens and decentralized protocols. We're already starting to see that. That's going to fuel the next wave. So while it feels frothy, the amount of froth we're going to see is incomprehensible. We're going to definitely see a bear market. That'll probably be, I think, in 18 months. After this next round of funding, the adrenaline's going to wear down and everyone's going to kind of realize that the reality is like there's a lot of competing products that are all doing very similar things, but there's a huge amount of capital in the space. And this is going to drive a 10-year cycle that's coming up to the end of like this decade. So like 2029, 2028. And while it feels hypey at the moment, that hype has to and will translate into some substance.
Yeah.
Probably the same as 2017, 18, where 80% of it won't. But then the remaining like 20 to 10% will crystallize and granulate and provide a base for the next cycle. So I think there's a lot of people that are just it makes me laugh when there was an iced tea company like 2 years ago, 3 years ago that just started putting blockchain on their thing
on the
packaging.
bottle.
Yeah, the American iced tea company. We're starting to see a bit of that impact in this market right now, where everyone's putting the AI tag on, and that's got some way to play out. So very hype, but we're not even frothy yet.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's got a long way to go. Yeah,
it's a really good answer. So this one can be like more of a personal one, right?
Yeah.
So what have you found to be your favorite ways to use AI just in everyday life?
Yeah, great question. I'm not a good writer. So I like being creative with my writing, but structurally I'm a terrible writer. It's the one thing I just failed at consistently when I was a kid. I could never get my English grammar very well. So it's really helped there, like just from a point of view of like translating ideas that are otherwise like a bandwidth constraint, like getting something out onto paper.
Yeah.
You can take a poorly formed idea and like expand it really, really quickly. It's not perfect, but then it gives you the space to like refine it. Through to just like having conversations like about ideas. I'll be just working out or like spinning, and I will literally have like a verbal conversation with AI about stuff that I'm thinking about. It then creates a history of what I've worked on. I then copy all of that, dump that output into another like AI. And for me, it's that constant process of being able to iterate on ideas.
Yeah,
In a way that you might do conversationally, right? Exactly. Like you and I could sit down and talk about topics, inspiration comes up. It isn't the same as the human to human interaction, but it's like from a coding perspective, 10, 50x my coding ability. It removes all of the shit that you don't want to think about, like documentation, all of the baseline stuff that ultimately uses a lot of brain power and then frees up your brain to solve bigger problems. So for me, anything from like making up recipes at home to cook, like I do that sometimes, I love to cook. But really it's like having that conversational partner where you don't always have someone to sit down to sound with when you've got an idea to formulate and flesh out a really, really good idea, or at least get something documented, where for me, writing's really hard. So I'll have a conversation, a record of that conversation that I can then build upon. Yeah, which is great.
Cool. One more question to get through. Why would the average user want to adopt a decentralized model over existing solutions that we've got? So like your LLMs on Web2.
Yeah. Better alignment of economic incentives and the ability for your inputs to be owned by you and then monetized later on. We've lived in this world of every post, every comment on social media. We've unknowingly and unwittingly, and finally knowingly, put them out into the public domain. It's not really public, it's in the company's domains. And then later realize they have value when billion-dollar companies are built on them. We have an opportunity today where the inputs are going to drive the best outputs. And the inputs are the prompts to these models a lot of the time. Yes, the data and the baseline data is really important for training, fine-tuning, whatever. But like increasingly, just look at the jump from GPT-4 to 4.0. Like it just is so different and so fast.
Yeah.
Being able to benefit economically as a user, like it's great. Early on, we're getting a ton of value from something that's $20 a month. That's why it's $20 a month. That's why it's not $200 a month or why it's not 10x that. But I think people increasingly will want to see more value for their data. And also, I'm going to say it, censorship of models is going to increase.
Right.
Like the ability to have open source, you call them jailbroken models, where they can offer
prompt engineering kind of thing.
Yeah, not even that, where they're not constrained. Like I had an experience the other day where I was asking Claude to write me a product requirement document about a particular feature I was killing in our product. And it said, am I qualified to kill that product, as like a response back to me? That's censorship.
Yes.
In a weird way. So I think that being able to spin up from like Hugging Face, some of these jailbroken, customized like LLMs that maybe are less tech censored, which we're in a pattern of doing and have been doing. You have to be sensible with the way that propagates. But I think that users will get very different experiences from those open source LLMs. There's a dark side to that, but there's also a good side to it. So I think choice comes out of this in a way that you typically wouldn't see in the centralized ecosystem. Like when you go to Anthropic, it's being filtered through a very definite lens that people have made definite decisions on. Same with Google. We've seen it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Brendan, for your time.
Yeah, no worries.
What have you got planned for the next few days while you're in Austin?
Yeah, we're rolling out with our institutional node operators, so validators. So meeting with a lot of our institutional node operators who are running validators on the network. Getting together with like friends in the space, and really trying to establish, like, from where we are now, what is the greatest value we can bring to the ecosystem on the data side. So that's our focus, like scaling the network with institutional parties, and then really understanding more from our core users what data they value the most.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Awesome.